Hi, thanks for coming and watching this video. This video is for you if you are brand new to Inkscape and completely new to vector type programs. So things like Inkscape, Adobe Illustrator, and Affinity Design are what are called vector drawing programs. What a vector is, it allows you to draw a line and scale it as big as possible and as small as possible without losing any resolution. So it doesn't work necessarily. It's scalable art, basically. And it's a preferred tool for most designers, especially when creating, because when you create something, you know you can blow it up to the size of a billboard and down to the size of a stamp and have the same quality of resolution. Now, you might lose some detail, but story for another time. So what I want to do with this video is just walk through some basic tools, or the tools you will most commonly use when setting up or using patterns to project for sewing. That way, in my other videos, I can focus on explaining what I'm doing in that particular video. And if you ever need to have a starter course, or you're watching one of those videos and I'm moving things through things a little too fast, I try to keep it slow and explain what I'm using. But if you ever want to reference it and kind of set your base of understanding, this is a great place to start. So first thing I want to say, good job having the courage to try something new. Uh, Give yourself a lot of patience when you're learning a program like this. There is a high learning curve. They teach these programs in college, so I mean, it's not like everyone can just pick up these kind of things. Some people can, but uh, just give yourself some patience and understand you're not going to be perfect, and sometimes I'm not perfect, and I learn new things. So with these types of programs, you always do. With technology, you're always learning new things because they're always changing things. So let's dive into it. I've got a project open here, and the main tools that you'll be using. So we'll start over here on our tool palette. The main ones I really use, there's three that I use, and then there's some I use when I start modifying pattern pieces. So if I need to shorten or lengthen a sleeve, if I need to grade between sizes, and I'm going to do a separate video to dive into those tools. I want to keep this really high level and really simple, the basic things that you'll need. The first one is your selector tool. Or, as you can see in the little parentheses there, if I hover over long enough, it's going to tell me what my hotkey is. A hotkey is by pressing something on your keyboard, and you don't have to go over here to select the item or tool you want. So say I'm got another tool selected, and I'm over here, and I don't want that anymore, and I want to grab this object. Instead of spending the time of moving my mouse over here and selecting that, I can use a hotkey. I type S, and as you can see, that circle turned into an arrow, and I have my selection tool again. It just saves a little bit of time, and when you're doing a lot of heavy designing or moving pattern pieces around, sometimes it just saves you a little bit of time, especially once you get used to things using those hotkeys. When I used to do design work, there was long periods of time I wouldn't even touch my mouse, and I would be controlling everything with my keyboard. Um, but that was in my previous life. So that is one main tool that you have. What happens is when you have that, if I select an item, it's going to select the item, right? And you're going to get all these arrows around the box. If you grab those arrows and drag it, it's going to change the size of the object. You don't want to do that, especially with patterns, right? But if you ever happen to select an item and it looks like this, it doesn't have those arrows and it has these little boxes, those are called nodes. They're individual points in the drawing that you can grab, and instead of scaling up the whole thing, I can grab just one corner and change one corner, as it's not changing the whole box, it's just changing that one item. Now I want to go back and I want to get rid of that. So I will get to how you undo stuff a little later when we get up to the top row of tools. So if you see these little diamonds essentially show up, it's because you don't have your selector tool. You have what's called the node tool, and it's right next to the selector tool, so sometimes you can accidentally click that instead. If you need to get back to the selector tool, you can either type S, and as you can see, my arrow has changed there. It's slightly different arrows. So selector is a pointy, no tail. Node tool is pointy, no tail. Selector tool is pointy with a tail on the arrow. So that's how you know you've got the wrong tool potentially. Another item you'll probably use a lot to start is your magnifying glass or your zoom tool, right? This helps you zoom in on the piece you want to see or find that line that you're trying to click, because this far away, it's really hard to click individual lines that you're trying to get a hold of. So as you can see in parentheses, your hotkey is Z. So if you have the zoom tool on to zoom in, you just click, or you can click and drag and go to that area that you drew a box around. Now to zoom out, you just hold down Shift and click away. Now let's say I've zoomed in and I want to select this. This is where the hotkey comes in handy. I hit S and I now have my selector tool. I've grabbed the item I want, or I've selected the item I want. And now I can click Z and hold Shift and zoom right back out. That's it. Those are the main tools on this left box that you're really going to use when you first start using Inkscape. I should explain, if someone's telling you click on the page or click on the board, this gray area is what's called a board. In traditional design, this was called a paste-up board. And then this white area is your page. So if I have something selected here and I've got all my layers on, if I want to unselect that, if I click over here, it might select this, or I click over here and it selects that, just click in your paste-up board or your board and you can deselect anything without running into selecting something else. The other buttons up here that you'll use is your import. Sorry, not your import, your undo and redo keys. So that's what I was doing when I had changed the size here, right? I accidentally grabbed that and I didn't mean to do it. You can come up here and you can click undo, or as you can see, the hotkey is Command Z. So that's what that little icon next to the Z is. That's your command. So when you see that icon, it means you're supposed to hold down Command and then click Z and it will undo it. Or you can redo it and it puts it back. And then you can hit Command Z and it will undo it. Or just click this button up here. It also can be found under Edit, Undo and Redo. Another item that you will use is your zoom tools here, potentially. So let's say I zoomed in on an area and I don't want to have to click a bunch of times or hold down Shift to do it. I can zoom back out to the whole page. So this one, zoom page, or you can type 5. I typically just go up there and click it. Or let's say I've come in here, I've hit S, I select the item, and now I want back out, but I want to keep zoomed in on the item I have selected. You click zoom selection or type 3. And now I just have the selection. So whatever's selected is what fills up my view. Those are going to be the main ones you use across the top of your tools. Nothing else. I'm sorry, I should have said this at the very beginning of this. Whenever you open up a pattern to start, I always like to save that pattern, do a save as, and save it as an SVG Inkscape file. That way, if you ever mess anything up and somehow you can undo it, you can always open up the original file. You haven't manipulated the original file that you downloaded from where you purchased it, and you can always start from scratch and go right back to that original file to start over if you need to. Or grab the item that you messed up, copy it, and paste it into your file. This just saves you from overwriting a file and messing up the original. And then do something that we used to call ABS, always be saving. So we would always remember to every now and then go up into save, or the hotkey is that little icon, which is Command S. So Command S will allow you to save it really quickly. I'm just used to doing that because back in the day, before laptops and you had batteries, someone would hit the power strip on the computer bank and everyone's computer was shut down and you just spent like 4 hours gone. We've all done it before on a computer, right? Moving on. The two palettes you're going to use most are your layers and objects palette and your fill and stroke palette. Now, the layers object, you'll see this if you're in the Facebook projectors for sewing Facebook group, which I highly recommend you join, or that's probably how you found this, they'll talk about, is your layers on, or turn off your layers. So if the place you purchased your pattern properly set up the projector file, they're going to have everything layered out, all your sizes, your grid, everything layered out for you. And it's fantastic when they do that. Sometimes it is not that clean. But to turn off your different layers, you just click this little eye icon, and it's called hiding it or making it visible, right? So you just click this, and as you can see, as I click these to the left, things are disappearing. And then I can isolate the piece I want. Now that I have it isolated, it makes it a lot easier to select the 2XL and just the 2XL because nothing else is in the way. So now, let's say I want to start working on setting things up, and that line is going to be way too thin for me, or it's one of those lines that's dotted and it makes it hard when I'm projecting it to see it, and I want to make it solid. That's where your stroke palette's going to come in. So your fill and stroke palette. So just click over here. Your stroke paint will be the color of it. Right, so I can change it to whatever wild color I want. I'm going to make it purple. I can go to stroke style, and then I work in point sizes. Normally it's going to come in as a PX. Make sure you use this drop down, click and hold, and go down to point. And I like to change this to 8 point. And as you can see, when I hit enter, it's going to thicken up this line, but it's dashed, and I don't want the dashes. I want it to be a solid line. So I just come over here to dashes. I'm going to click the drop down and move it to solid. And now it's going to be a solid line when I project it. And I do that to all my pieces. The last thing I want to point out is when using pattern pieces, I'm going to click Z to zoom in to grab my zoom tool. I'm going to zoom in, draw a box, because you can maybe see them. There's two little lines. Those are my cut line indicators, or match points indicators. Notice those didn't change thickness. Well, why is that? I'm going to click S so I can grab my selection tool. As you can see, when I select this is a separate item in here. So these have its own selection. So if I wanted to thicken those up, I could just grab that. I can go to this layer again, and I can change this to maybe a 5 point. Really thickens it up. Or to make sure it's very visible, instead of doing a stroke, I could come to the stroke and paint. This little X icon is going to turn off the stroke. As you can see, it disappeared. I'm going to go to fill, and I'm going to click this flat color. Just going to make it a little more bold. You can do either one, thicken the outline, or just fill the space. Let me zoom out to the page. One other thing, so let's say I'm moving pattern pieces around and I grab this. Oops, as you can see, I have left behind those pattern match cut points. We definitely don't want that. So I'm going to click Command Z or the undo button to bring it back. I'm going to grab my selector or type S. And before I move it, I'm going to select all of these items. And I'm going to grab this. But wait a second. Looks like something else came along with it. Let me zoom in on that. It grabbed the cut line from my sleeve. Well, that's not good. So let me zoom out again by clicking my page zoom out. Let me Command Z or click the undo button, and it puts things back. Grab my selection, unselect everything. I'm going to go back to the layers. It doesn't look like this pattern piece. It looks like everything's grouped together, or not grouped together. It's all on one layer, so there's no sub layers. So I can't turn off these individual pieces. That's fine. What I can do then is I can zoom in, and I can just begin selecting, making sure I have all the items by holding down Shift. I'm going to draw around that. I'm I'm going to draw around this that says 2XL. I'm going to draw around the little cut line, match line there. If I hold down my space bar and then click and drag my mouse, I can move the page around. So that makes it easy to navigate. This I'm just doing to make sure, just release the space bar to stop dragging it around. If you need to drag it around again, just click the space bar and move your mouse. It looks like I've got everything selected now. To select multiple items again, let me do that again. So I'm going to click the first item. I'm going to hold down Shift when I start selecting any of the other items that I want. The next thing you want to do is then just go up here and do an object group or path group. Sorry. Edit. Where is it at? I can't remember where it's at in here because I use a hotkey for this. Where's group? Group, sorry, it is object. Object and then group. That is going to be a Command G. So to group this item, so I just click group here. And once that's done is now when I select it, it grabs everything in that pattern piece. So when I start moving things around, it all moves in one unit. Last thing I want to go over, I might have said that a few times now, I apologize. But when you do open up these drop downs, you're going to see all those hotkey commands if you want to learn them. What the open arrow is your shift key that signifies I've got to hold down shift. Then the next icon is your command and then L. Again, this is on a Mac. It's going to be different on a PC. But just open it up like this and it should give you those hotkeys. I think control is alt, or control is control, option is alt. I think that's what they are on a PC. But anyway, you'll also see these arrows. This arrow is just literally your arrow key on your keypad. If it's an arrow with a line, it's function an arrow on your keypad. So that's about it for the simple main things that you're going to use a lot when you start using Inkscape. Hopefully this has been helpful. My other videos will get into more details about other things like how do you nudge an item or move an item slightly. So watch those videos and you'll pick up even more tips on the tools. Hopefully you find these helpful. Please comment or like. Let me know if there's something else you want to know more about, and I will try to cover it in another video. Thanks and have a great day. Happy sewing.